Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe. Today we're going to be taking a look at another Prime primary, and quite possibly one of my favourite weapons in the game, the Paris Prime. Now I just want to quickly apologise for the lack of content, and also if my voice sounds kind of rubbish in this video. I've been struggling with a pretty bad chest infection, which for a couple of days has meant I can't talk for more than about 30 seconds before being out of breath and having a coughing fit. With a bit of luck, it will last just long enough to get this content out to you today, and hopefully in the next few days it will ease, allowing me to consistently get content out to you guys. Now the Paris Prime was released way back in Update 9 and still remains the only bow to have been primed. But what do you actually get from this Prime version of an already decent bow? You get a fantastic 100 damage per shot on a non-charged attack, with it doubling to 200 when fully charged. The damage is almost entirely puncture, with 80 of that 100 coming in the form of puncture, with the remaining 20 being mostly slash, with a little bit of impact thrown in as well. It also comes with the second highest critical chance in the game of 45%, meaning a total crit chance of 112.5% when a max point strike is taken into account, causing a 12.5% chance to bring red crits into contention, which boosts your damage by an absolutely insane amount. It also comes with a pretty average 200% critical damage multiplier, and an above average status chance at 20%, plus a much improved 1 second charge time over the standard Paris. Also, due to the Paris Prime being a bow, it gains innate punch through on fully charged shots, as well as that extra damage, really improving the damage output per arrow. Effectively, the Prime is pretty much just a straight upgrade to the normal Paris, with there not really being any drawbacks to the Prime over the standard weapon, like some of the more recent Primes have had. Now there obviously are a few disadvantages to bows in Warframe that are not really specific to the Paris Prime. Primarily is the fact that it's a crit based weapon. As soon as a weapon is due to be modded most effectively as crit based, you immediately lose 2 mod slots because of crit chance and crit damage. And then because it's a bow, arguably one for the fire rate mod, that is also pretty much mandatory on it as well. So before you even begin, and you take out your white damage mods, your multi-shot, the crit mods and the fire rate, you're down to 2 or maybe 3 mod slots remaining before you even begin. This means you're always going to have at least 1, maybe 2 less elemental mods on the weapon. Secondly, the Paris Prime requires a ton of player accuracy to be able to make the most out of it. What this means is, if you're used to shooting weapons sort of vaguely in the direction of an enemy with full auto and hope to hit targets, then the Paris Prime is not going to be for you. This weapon requires really very good accuracy to be able to effectively use. Any shot that doesn't land on target is a shot wasted, and not only that, it's a ton of damage wasted. It requires correct leading of targets, also pinpoint accuracy, at which point this weapon turns into a beast, but unless that is mastered, it is a tough one to just pick up and use. Now the thing about the Paris Prime is that the part drops for this weapon is fairly prevalent, and drops in a large number of places, which each of them dropping in 2 locations. Now I'm not going to go through all of the drop locations, although they are on the left of the screen for you now. Now because of the multitude of locations that you can pick up the Paris Prime part, it really does make it somewhat of an easy farm, and not something that should be too difficult to pick up, and trust me on this, it's worth it when you do manage to get all the parts. Also, with the fact that this is another one of these weapons with 4 parts, 5 parts if you include the blueprint to be able to build, it does mean that there is absolutely no Oricon cell cost at all, which arguably makes this cheaper than some of the other Prime weapons that only require 3 or 4 parts and a lot of Oricon cells to build. Okay, so now we've had a look at the stats of the weapon, let's move on to how we're going to mod it. Now it comes with a V and a dash as standard, however we're going to add another 4 V's through former. Now realistically, the only thing that's going to change on this build is the elemental mods. The majority of the mods are going to be the same between all 3 of them. We're going to start up with serration and split chamber. We're going to go with piercing caliber rather than heavy caliber, purely because we don't want that negative accuracy. It hits the bow far too hard, so the increase in damage isn't worth it over that accuracy loss. Now since this is an event mod, it's entirely possible not everybody is going to have it. So if you don't have this mod, then putting another elemental on is probably going to be better off than trying to force something like heavy caliber on there. It, like I say, it hits the bows far too hard to be of any use whatsoever. Now moving on, we've got speed trigger, which is going to increase the charge speed of the weapon and make it much more usable in those very close range encounters against a lot of enemies. And it's pretty much a mandatory mod on all bows. And then we're going to go on to the standard point strike and vital sense, which are needed for that crit chance and crit damage, and is a standard on any crit based weapon. Now because this is designed for taking down heavy units, we're going to go with the elemental that's going to deal the most against those very heavy units. So against the Grineer, we're going to go with Stormbringer and Hellfire for radiation, to take down things like the Bombards and the Napalms. And a little bit lower down, you can also take down very easily those Eviscerators, which are very heavily armoured and will shred you if you're not careful. Now moving on to the Corpus build, we're going to go with Stormbringer and Cryo rounds, because Puncture has a massive damage reduction against shields, and even though there is a lot of puncture damage, it has, like I say, a 75% reduction on shields, so having that magnetic damage really does help a lot against those. And then the raw damage of the puncture is going to deal the most damage probably against the fleshier parts, the fleshier units of the Corpus. And in the Void, we're going to go with a build for when you've got corrosive projection on, so we're going to go with full viral, which is going to deal with those heavy Grineer based units in the Void. Now if you're not all running corrosive projection, which you probably should at this point in the Void, you can actually change out cryo rounds for Stormbringer, which is going to bring up corrosive damage, and that will do the job, but it won't do it as effectively as viral will with that 3 corrosive projection build. Now on to my recommendation as to whether the Paris Prime is not only worth the farm, but also the Catalyst and the Former. And the answer to that should be fairly unsurprising. Yes, it absolutely is. The Paris Prime is one of the strongest single shot weapons in the game, designed to take down those extremely heavy units with a ton of damage, and when properly modded, does that incredibly well. I've said in a whole bunch of videos before that I absolutely adore weapons that require an element of skill to them, something that I feel is sadly lacking in a lot of the more recent weapons. And honestly, the bow is the last bastion of the marksman. Someone uses extreme skill to be able to land shot after shot effectively, especially with snipers being so insanely far behind the bows, despite them fulfilling a very similar role. Not only the fact that the Paris Prime is one of the top weapons in the game, it's an absolute blast to use as well. There's nothing more satisfying than hitting target after target in rapid succession, sending body after body flying across the room, pinning them to the wall like some sort of abstract art piece. This is how I judge weapons in Warframe, not just on how good they are, but also how fun they are to play. And quite frankly, all the bows, not just the Paris Prime, are quite frankly my most fun class in the game. So in effect, the Paris Prime has the looks, has the ability, and the fun factor, making it quite frankly one of, if not my favourite weapon in the game, and always an asset to anybody's arsenal. Just a quick little channel update from me. As some of you will know, and maybe some won't, that I am an official Warframe channel, and as such I get sent codes every now and again to give away. And as it would happen, I have one of those codes to give away right now. All you need to do to enter for a chance to win this 75 platinum code is to comment on this video with what weapon you feel is your favourite one in the game right now. The winner of the code will be announced in next Wednesday's video, so stay tuned for that. The support I've received from you guys and girls on this channel has been absolutely amazing. I'll always try and get the best content out to you if I can, and always, please remember to leave a like and subscribe, it helps me out a ton, and I shall see you in the next episode.